Salivary gland. Salivary gland is an exocrine gland which has the duct supply and which produces saliva. They are divided into three types. Usually it's two types: major salivary gland and minor salivary gland. Major salivary gland is of three types, that is parotid, submandibular and sublingual gland. Parotid gland is the largest gland which is situated just below the external auditory canal, and in between the external auditory canal and in between uh, the ramus of the mandible, and anteriorly there is sternocleidomastoid muscle. So parotid is the location of the parotid is this, and the submandibular gland is situated in the digastric triangle, and regarding digastric, it is on the anterior region of the digastric triangle. And sublingual gland lies above the mylohyoid muscle, uh, below the mucosa of the floor of the mouth. Mylohyoid muscle. So these were the location, and where is the opening you need to know. And the opening, the parotid gland opens on the upper second molar region, and the submandibular gland has the largest percentage of saliva secretion, that is about 80% of the 64% of the saliva secretion is through the submandibular region, and the second largest 32% is by the parotid gland, and it opens at the frenulum, at the base of the floor of the mouth, at frenulum. And the sublingual also open on the base of the floor of the mouth. So these were the opening, and in general condition, what should we know? That the largest is the parotid salivary gland, and but the largest percentage of saliva secretion is through the submandibular. And regarding the parts of the parotid gland is divided into deep and superficial parotid gland, which is divided through facial nerve, causes the division of the parotid gland. And regarding the arterial supply, the parotid is supplied with the external carotid artery and external jugular vein. External carotid artery and external jugular vein is the blood supply of the parotid. Regarding submandibular is supplied by submandibular and sublingual, both are supplied by the facial and lingual artery and nerve. Artery and vein. And this is all about the introduction or anatomical portion of the salivary gland. Now coming to the minor disease, some small minor disease like mumps. We will study all these diseases regarding the topic under the topic of introduction, clinical feature, diagnosis and treatment. And what is the introduction of the mumps? Mumps is a viral disease caused by paramyxovirus, which is a single-stranded RNA virus. And that usually gets transmitted through the respiratory droplet, and the incubation period is usually 2 to 3 weeks. This is paramyxovirus, and the virus is usually excreted into the saliva, nasal secretion and urinary secretion. And how does this patient present? They will come with the fever, unilateral parotid swelling, means prodromal sign of the viral prodromes, along with the swelling of the unilateral swelling of the parotid region, and usually the swelling subsides in 1 week. And usually there could be complication like orchitis, orphitis, ophritis means ovary inflammation, pancreatitis. That is not a big deal. And how to diagnose? Because it is a viral condition, there is rise in IgM and IgG level. IgG and IgM level is raised along with the amylase level. Amylase is usually raised in the earliest stage, first week of the parotitis region. And which salivary gland does it affect? Usually it affects parotid salivary gland. And this were the intro portion, and clinical feature you have got it. Usually unilateral swelling along with the viral program, and diagnosis is like this: amylase and IgM level is usually raised. And for the treatment modality, because it is viral, so you should always focus on conservative management. Hydration should be maintained. And for the prevention, the infant should be given MMR vaccine. So there is no definitive treatment, just supportive treatment should be provided. That's all for the moms. And suppurative parotitis is the inflammation of the parotid gland along with pus formation, and pus forming bacteria are Staph aureus. So Staph aureus is the most common cause of suppurative otitis media aureus. And other could be either anaerobic or aerobic bacteria can also be involved, but Staph aureus is the most common. And what is the root for the parotid inflammation? Then the infection can either spread from the mouth via Stenson's duct, or it can spread from the external auditory canal via cartilaginous or bony portion, because there is a deficient structure. As in cartilaginous structure, the deficient structure is known as foramen of Santorini, and bony structure, it is foramen of Fouske. Then the infection can spread. It can also spread from the lymph node, and sometimes dry mouth is also considered as a predisposing factor for the suppurative parotitis. And how does they present? Clinical symptom usually sudden onset with painful parotid gland swelling along with edema, and there is discharging pus, means swelling plus pus plus pain. So these were the classical presentation for the suppurative parotitis. Regarding diagnosis, you need to go for culture investigation and blood examination to rule out the which organism, and accordingly you need to, and blood examination will show leukocytosis, and culture will show the actual organism behind the parotitis, and accordingly you need to treat by the sometimes X-ray, CT scan and MRI is also performed for the suppurative parotitis, and treatment is usually the antibiotic therapy which is given for the bacterial infection. And hydration should be maintained along with the other supportive therapies. And regarding the Sial lithiasis is the stone formation in the salivary gland. And where does this stone usually seen? It is usually seen in the mandibular gland, because the mandibular gland has a larger duct. And the drainage of the mandibular gland is usually against the gravity, so there is stone formation. And the stone is made up of, what is the constituent of the stone? It is usually made up of calcium phosphate along with some hydroxyapatite, and magnesium potassium are also in some amount. Calcium phosphate and hydroxyapatite is the along with magnesium, sodium and potassium. And what is the cause behind the stone formation? The exact cause is unknown. But it is believed that it is predisposed by the inflammation of the parotid or any salivary gland, that is known as Chiari adenitis, and it is also believed to be caused due to the calcium metabolism abnormality, dehydration, and gout and nephrolithiasis. Hypercalcemia means calcium metabolism is abnormal. Gout could be there, nephrolithiasis can be there, and these were the cause. And regarding the diagnosis, clinical presentation, they present as a mealtime syndrome. Means there is a pain usually when a person sees or thinks about the food. There is pain in the and swelling in the gland, that is called as mealtime syndrome. mealtime syndrome. And other symptom can be either X-ray can show painless swelling of the um, painless swelling of the salivary gland, mealtime swelling, and X-ray and CT scan is also uh, diagnostic procedure, but the presentation is usually tender, palpable, hard, lump, and a lack of saliva coming from the salivary gland. Uh, Regarding means think about the stone formation in the duct. If there is a stone, there will be obviously pain. There is tenderness, and there is swelling which is very tender. Okay, there is erythema post discharge, and these were the presentation. And there could be lymphadenitis also. For diagnosis, you need to do X-ray, CT scan, ultrasound. Cialography is an endoscopic procedure. Cialoendoscopy is an endoscopy that utilizes to visualize the duct of the salivary gland. So these were the diagnostic procedure with almost if you need know about the intro or the cause behind the disease, the diagnostic procedure is very easy. And regarding the treatment of the stone formation, there is no definitive treatment, only conservative treatment is performed. And what falls under the conservative, the salivary gland is massage 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 of the salivary gland. And usually some chocolates are given to chew hard, so that there could be excess amount of salivary gland production. Chocolates are given to chew, and proper hydration is maintained. Usually if the stone is smaller, then there is no surgical intervention required because it gets dislodged. But if the stone is larger, then there is it is important to go undergo surgical extension. And what does and submandibular or parotid duct can be removed intraorally. That is the surgical procedure. Direct salivary gland removal is the ultimate surgical removal. And regarding the difference between the parotid and submandibular stone formation, the submandibular parotid stone is usually smaller and multiple in size, but the submandibular has a larger and usually single stone. So this was the difference between those stones. And the last disease before the tumor is Sjogren syndrome. Sjogren syndrome is usually associated with dryness of eye or mouth. So this is the exact cause is not known, but it is supposed to be chronic autoimmune disorder of the exocrine gland. And this is divided into two types, that is primary Sjogren syndrome and secondary Sjogren syndrome. Primary Sjogren syndrome is a collection of 2 symptoms, and secondary is the collection of 3 symptoms. Primary is usually has 2 symptoms, that is consist of xerophthalmia and xerostomia, means dry mouth and dry eye. That is and the parotid gland is usually involved, and it is also known as benign lymphoepithelial lesion of the parotid. Benign lymphoepithelial lesion of parotid, or also known as Mikulicz disease. Mikulicz disease is also other name of the primary Sjogren syndrome. But the secondary Sjogren syndrome is associated with the dryness of the mouth, dryness of the ear, dryness of the eye, along with the joint problem. Rheumatoid arthritis is also seen in secondary. Rheumatoid arthritis, eye and mouth. These were the symptoms in the secondary Sjogren syndrome. Usually the eye shows keratoconjunctivitis sicca, and the xerostomia in the mouth, and autoimmune connective disorder, that is rheumatoid arthritis. For diagnosis, you need to undergo rheumatic ESR level is raised, and rheumatoid factor is positive, and nuclear antibody like P ANCA and C ANCA are raised. Rheumatoid factors and nuclear antibody, that is P ANCA and C ANCA, are raised, and biopsy should be performed to rule out the malignant stage. So now the last portion is about the tumor. So regarding tumor is divided into benign and malignant. Benign is further divided into according to the site of the benign tumor. That is, it can be either epithelial or mesenchymal. Epithelial is usually more common, that is pleomorphic adenoma, pleomorphic adenolymphoma and oncocytoma. And regarding other mesenchymal component can be either hemangioma, lymphangioma, lipoma. So first of all, benign tumor was benign epithelial lesion with pleomorphic adenoma, adenolymphoma and oncocytoma. And regarding mesenchymal where the mesenchymal is divided into hemangioma, lymphangioma and lipoma. And other was the malignant region. Malignant is also under the epidermal and mesenchymal. Under epidermal, the most common malignant tumor in the children is mucoepidermoid carcinoma, and the most common in the adult is the adenoid cystic carcinoma. And so regarding pleomorphic adenoma, we need to know pleomorphic adenoma. Look, pleomorphic adenoma is the most common benign tumor of the salivary gland, usually seen in the parotid gland. And parotid में भी स्पेसिफिक बात किया जाए तो पैरोटिड का भी जो टेल रीजन होता है, तो टेल इज इन्वॉल्व्ड मैक्सिमम. So pleomorphic, why it is called pleomorphic? Because it is a mixed tumor. It shows both the feature of it has the structure of both epidermis as well as mesenchymal product, mesenchymal. And usually the tumor is encapsulated, and under the encapsulation there will be both the component of the epidermis and mesenchyme. And the treatment is usually superficial parotidectomy, and that is also known as Patey's operation. So this was all for pleomorphic adenoma. Now coming to the adenolymphoma, which is also known as Warthin's tumor. You need to know Warthin's tumor is the adenolymphoma, and smoking increases the risk of adenolymphoma. And regarding diagnosis, there is a 99 T centimeter scale is diagnostic. 99 TCM is regarded as diagnostic test for. This is a CT scan, type of CT scan. So this is regarded as diagnostic test for the adenolymphoma. And oncocytoma is the acidophilic cell oncocytes gets tumor. Oncocytoma is the tumor of the acidophilic cell called as oncocyte. Oncocyte means acidophilic cell, and the morphology is usually cystic type. But you need to know regarding mesenchymal component, there was hemangioma. Hemangioma is the most common benign tumor in the children. So this was the MCQ point. Hemangioma is the most common benign tumor in the children. And regarding malignant tumor में mucoepidermoid carcinoma. Mucoepidermoid carcinoma is why does muco and epidermis it is called? Because it is a tumor of both mucin producing gland and along with squamous cell. Mucoepidermoid, because mucin producing gland and epidermis. Epidermis means squamous cell. So both components are present in mucoepidermoid, usually involved. Regarding, you can all the tumor are more common in parotid region, but the stone was more common in submandibular region. So this is also more common in parotid region. And there is the treatment modality is usually total parotidectomy. Is done. And most common, it is the most common malignant tumor of the child. I had told this, children. And now coming to the adenocystic carcinoma. Adenocystic carcinoma says that adenocystic carcinoma, you need to know that this is the most common carcinoma in the adult, and it usually affects the parotid region, and seventh nerve paralysis can also be seen. And there is usually not a total parotidectomy is required. Partial parotidectomy can treat this radical parotidectomy. Radical parotidectomy is done, and at last we need to know about the Freeze syndrome. FREYS. Freeze syndrome is associated with the complication of the parotid surgery. While undergoing parotid surgery, the patient the innervation of the parotid gland is becomes aberrant. As a result, there is sweating and flossing from the preauricular part during eating. The patient, the first point was, when the patient undergoes parotid surgery, the innervation of the parotid gland gets intervened, and as a result, the patient comes with the history of sweating and flossing from the preauricular region during eating, means chewing food. And as a result, the treatment is usually tympanic neurectomy, which intercept this parasympathetic fiber at the level of the middle ear. Tympanic parotidectomy, neurectomy. Tympanic neurectomy is done. So that's all for the salivary gland tumor.